Hi, thank you for watching Dig Into China. I'm Dong Sheng. If you have not done so already, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much. Today, we'll discuss the topic of reunification, which has become a highly debated and widely discussed issue in Chinese social media in recent days. We will begin by sharing 3 news stories that are closely related to the concept of reunification. The first news story highlights a viral video featuring Professor Fang Bing from China's National Defense University. In the video, which was filmed last year, Professor Fang made a shocking statement. He expressed, "We can abandon 200 cities and regress to the Stone Age alongside the United States. Do they have the courage?" It is interesting to note that this statement mirrors the sentiments expressed by another influential nationalist military figure in China in previous years. During that time, there was a prevalent belief within the Chinese military that they would rather relinquish the eastern region of China, including Xi'an, and face destruction in a conflict with the United States over the Taiwan issue. Professor Fang's statement essentially echoes this sentiment, implying that China is prepared to sacrifice 200 cities and confront the United States. The extensive discussion among Chinese netizens on this matter is due to the fact that these 200 cities account for a significant portion of China's population. If this substantial population were to vanish, who would Professor Fang's victory be for? Many internet users question whether their own hometowns and families are included among these 200 cities. Such statements resemble the bargaining tactics of outlaws and rogues. However, regardless of the specifics, this reflects the Chinese Communist Party's determination or perhaps intimidation regarding the reunification of Taiwan through military means. It is indeed unsettling, but I believe that not many netizens would seriously refute it. It is merely the incoherent rambling of an irrational individual lacking humanity, responsibility, and rationality. When the CCP ponders issues, they casually view the people as expendable. Such statements have ignited a significant controversy within Chinese society. The second news story relates to the issue of reunification and involves well-known Chinese nationalist scholar Li Yi. In a recent conference, Li Yi emphasized his determination to reunify Taiwan. He controversially stated that if the reunification of Taiwan resulted in the loss of 140 million lives in China, it would be insignificant in the context of human history. Drawing parallels to General Fang's statement about destroying 200 cities without hesitation, despite the strict censorship environment in China, Li Yi holds considerable influence and is supported by the Chinese Communist Party. Why did Li Yi specifically choose the figure of 140 million and neglected other possibilities? His arguments are often seen as distorted, earning him the title of a scholar in the state-controlled media. Li Yi claims that his number is based on a specific algorithm, citing the American Civil War, where 3 million deaths accounted for 10% of the population at the time, and the Vietnam War, where 3 million deaths equated 5% of the population. Li Yi concludes that if 140 million lives were lost in China, it would be considered normal, akin to the United States experience, and not excessive. Many find it puzzling how Li Yi became a university professor and pursued studies in the United States. Historically, the recognized death toll of the American Civil War is 620,000, roughly 2% of the population at the time, with a total casualty account of 3 million, including injuries, amounting to 10% of the population. Li Yi's remarks fall to garner praise even from the Little Pink supporters in China. According to Li Yi, the loss of 140 million Chinese lives is treated as casually as crushing a few ants. Despite the absurdity and extremity of this statement, Li Yi enjoys protection in China without facing any form of censorship, filtering accounts, suspension, or speech prohibition. His views are in alignment with the values of the Chinese Communist Party, which explains why he evades consequences for his words. The third news story revolves around the appearance of China's top leader, President Xi Jinping, who joined the discussion following General Fang and Professor Li. President Xi dedicated 2 days to address the issue at hand. On June 2nd, during his visit to the Cultural Publishing House, he emphasized the significance of unity in Chinese civilization, stating that it is a core interest that determines the importance of reunification. Continuing his discourse on June 3rd during a conference at the Chinese Academy of History and Cultural Research, President Xi provided further insights into his perspective on reunification. He stressed the remarkable unity within Chinese civilization, which serves as the foundation for integrating diverse ethnic cultures into a cohesive whole. Despite encountering significant challenges, this unity remains resilient, fostering a shared belief in preserving the integrity of the nation's territory, ensuring stability, promoting ethnic unity, and preserving the continuity of Chinese civilization. President Xi asserted that the national reunification will perpetually remain at the core of China's interests. It is plausible that this statement was crafted by Li Shulei, the newly appointed Minister of Publicity Department, and the President Xi has expressed a strong appreciation for this sentiment, reiterating it in recent days. As a result, his views align with those of General Fang and Professor Li, forming a coherent narrative. Here are my takeaways. In the first place, the modern society we have today is distinct from that of several hundred or even 100 years ago. The principles governing modern civilization are entirely different from the standards upheld by past societies. Throughout history, the majority of countries embraced a law of the jungle, wherein leaders aimed to conquer and expand their territories. The more land they occupied, the more favorably they were regarded by their people. The notion of unity often entailed the occupation of others' territories. Naturally, unified nations did not exist in history. Unity and division have always arisen from the process of mutual conquest and warfare within the framework of the law of the jungle. In the modern civilized era, the practice of using warfare to conquer and expand territories has been rejected by history. Let's consider the example of Russia during the time of the Tsars. Back then, the Tsars aimed to occupy Ukraine and the Baltic countries within the cultural context of that period. The Russian people believed it was in the national interest and for the well-being of the country. However, in today's world, such actions are viewed as acts of aggression. When attempting to invade Ukraine, Putin has to justify his actions with reasons like a NATO expansion or mistreatment of Russian people. In contrast, during the Tsarist era, such justifications were unnecessary. The Tsar could simply claim that territorial expansion was for the benefit of the people, and they would support it naturally. In the present era, the global community opposes the law of the jungle, conquest, and forced unification. Yet, Xi Jinping continues to follow the path of China's historical emperors and military leaders, seeking to expand the territories through warfare and create a larger national territory. While he labels it as unity, the reality is that the so-called unity in Chinese history has been associated with aggression, conquest, and occupation. The second perspective is that General Fang, Li and Xi Jinping share identical views. They are willing to achieve reunification at any cost, even if it involves sacrificing many lives. In their pursuit of reunification, individual lives are considered secondary and inconsequential in the larger picture. The loss of 140 million lives or the destruction of 200 cities is seen as insignificant, akin to a mere drizzle. President Xi has emphasized that the reunification is the utmost core interest, and no sacrifice is too great to attain it. This addresses a fundamental question. What is the purpose of reunification? The answer is clear: to expand and exert control over the territories conquered by Xi Jinping. If casualties occur during the process, they are regarded as minor issues. Hence, this supposed perspective on reunification revolves around the rulers expanding their dominion, disregarding the well-being of the people and being willing to sacrifice them. It reflects a worldview in which rulers prioritize their own power and show little regard for the welfare of the people. General Fang and Li simply offer interpretation or endorsements of Xi Jinping's absolute reunification theory, which lacks principles. Through their statements, it becomes increasingly apparent that Xi Jinping's threat to Taiwan is genuine. Behind his fervent pursuit of reunification, he disregards the lives and the survival of the people. Such reunification fundamentally opposes the interests of humanity. The third perspective is as follows. Xi Jinping, with his limited cultural knowledge, came across a text that he perceived as sophisticated. It highlighted the unity of Chinese civilization and proclaimed it as the core interest. Despite his limited understanding of history, Xi Jinping considers this statement profound and has been repeatedly emphasizing it in recent days. However, those familiar with Chinese history are aware of a well-known saying: the great trends of the world tend to divide and then unite. China's wise men and historians hold a more composed and balanced view of history. The cycles of division and reunification, conflicts and wars among rulers have always exacted sacrifices from the people. Unity does not guarantee prosperity, nor does division herald the collapse of the heaven. Hence, cycles of division and reunification have been the customary pattern in China for thousands of years, akin to a game of war among feudal lords and rulers. The unified Qin Dynasty might not have necessarily brought a better life for the people compared to the 7 states before unification, particularly concerning the Chinese Communist Party's desire for Taiwan. The per capita GDP, creative capacity, and the labor productivity of the Taiwanese people far exceed those of mainland China. Under the current leadership of Taiwan, the living conditions of its people are superior to those on the mainland. In this context, Xi Jinping's attempt to forcibly expand his territorial and ruling authority to Taiwan would unquestionably be disastrous for the Taiwanese people. While Xi Jinping superficially speaks of unity, the underlying logic is that of dictatorship. Let's revisit his words. Chinese civilization possesses remarkable unity, which fundamentally determines the integration of various ethnic cultures into one. Even in the face of significant setbacks, this unity remains strong and solid. This underscores Xi Jinping's persistent emphasis on so-called security and turbulence, because the implicit subtext of his logic is as follows. Who can achieve China's unity? Only through Xi Jinping thought. Who can ensure China's firm unity? Only a leader like him. Who can accomplish reunification? Only Xi Jinping himself. Therefore, when Xi Jinping addresses the topic of reunification, he lacks the courage and the capability to engage in warfare. However, he becomes increasingly aggressive in his rhetoric over time. The true intention behind his calls for reunification is to consolidate his dictatorship and instill fear in the people, as war serves as the most direct means of intimidation. But how can he incite a war? He does not dare to initiate a civil war as it would ultimately undermine his own power. Instead, he desires to provoke an external conflict, but lacks the bravery to actively participate in it. If a genuine World War II arises, he would surrender. Ultimately, he coerced the people into submission under his dictatorship. This fundamental motive underlies Xi Jinping's extremist unification theory and his relentless pursuit of it. Thank you for watching. Please leave a comment and subscribe to my channel. Just click the subscribe button right here. I'll see you again shortly. Until then, be well.